Okay, good morning, my friends. Today we're going to talk about one kind of essay that you could choose to write about on your Washington, D.C. project. Remember, you have four choices of essays, and I will have a video for all four of them. You can look them over, talk to your family about them, and see which one that you would like to do. And then take a look at the video on that essay, and you'll have an example of one, and you'll have a better understanding of what I'm looking for in that essay. So I'm going to show you essay number one, essay style, essay genre number one. Okay? This morning we're talking about the one with the biggest name, historically fictional personal narrative. Historically means that it's based in real events in history. Fictional means it's fake. Personal means you're in it. And a narrative means it's a story. So basically, it's a fake story with you someplace in history. Think of the I Survived books, or if you've ever seen Back to the Future, okay, or Forrest Gump, okay. So these characters always find themselves in these crazy historical places. So for my narrative, I chose On the Train with Abe. I bet you can guess that Abe Lincoln is going to be on the train with me, okay? That's the Abe that we're talking about. So, was I ever on a train with Abe Lincoln? No. That's what makes it fictional, okay? But this is a story about a train ride that he took on the way to Gettysburg, where he gave the Gettysburg Address. Gettysburg was a site of a battlefield where it was the worst battle in the Civil War between the North states and the Southern states, and he was the president at the time trying to bring the country back together, and it was not the easiest thing to do, and it was a difficult time for him, and he had to write a speech about the battle. Two things that people remember the most about the speech. One, it was super short. The person in front of him spoke for over 2 hours with his speech, and then Abe got up and our president spoke for about 2 minutes. So you would think, wow, he didn't have much to say, but the speech is still regarded as one of the best speeches ever written by a U.S. president, and it is also engraved inside of his Lincoln Memorial. So two reasons why I would use this particular event, because I'm going to be doing the Lincoln Memorial as my Washington, D.C. project. So what we're looking for is a short story or a piece of a story that has you in the mix in some impactful, important historical event that has something to do with your project. So if you're doing the Jefferson Memorial for your project, you shouldn't be writing about hanging out with Martin Luther King. And also, if you're doing an essay or if you're doing the project on the Martin Luther King Memorial, you should not be doing anything to do with, say, Abraham Lincoln. Okay? So make sure it makes sense, and then do a little research on the event. I went on to a website and read about the Gettysburg Address and got some information that I used in here like I was there. Now, mine's a little bit longer than it needs to be because I never shut up. You know, I like to do some dialogue, and that takes up space because every time there's a new speaker, there's a new paragraph. So I have to stop, enter, indent. So that takes up space. So as you know, sometimes I'm a little long-winded with my writing, and I'm a little longer. But all you have to do is one page, 14 font so people can read it, okay? And that's it. So if you don't get to write the entire event, that's okay. If you want to go a little longer and make the entire event, that's fine too. But if you're talking about, like, I don't know, the World War II, that was a long thing that happened. So pick one day and then try to get through it, okay? So just a quick read, if I can. I don't know if it's going to be that easy for you guys to read it. But in this story, I am one of his new clerks. And I'm riding on the train with President Lincoln the night before the event, and he's just finishing up his speech. So it says, I could tell that the president's face was deep in thought, even in the dim light of the train's presidential car. In my few months serving as his aide, I was shocked at the physical toll that the war had taken on Lincoln. I always pictured him as a strong Midwesterner, chopping down trees with an axe, but at times it looked like he himself might be knocked to the ground by the that was splitting our great country in two. Now, even months after the victory over Lee's army at Gettysburg, President Lincoln did not seem at ease as we traveled to the site to dedicate a national cemetery to those who fell during that terrible battle. Okay, so this has a chock full of information that I didn't list as a laundry list, but I tried to add as much as I could so that you knew what was going on. So it's talking about the war that is splitting the country in two, the Civil War. I mentioned that he was a Midwesterner because he was from originally from Kentucky, and then he lived in Illinois for a long time. And he actually was born, as most of you know, he was born in a log cabin, so he probably has some experience chopping down trees with an axe. And then I talk about why he was there. They decided to dedicate a cemetery to the place where the battle took place because so many men died on that battlefield that they turned it into a cemetery. And that's why he was invited to speak there. Okay? So I just laid the groundwork. You have to have a setting, and you have to tell me who is in the story. So I have me, the president, and that we're in a train. Okay? All the other stuff is kind of just to show you that I did a little research on him. So here comes some dialogue. "Sir, you are still working on the speech? At this late hour?" I asked. "These men, this country, deserve my best effort always, young man," he responded without looking up from the paper. Getting a little insight into what kind of president he was. Always demanding of himself his best effort. Just like us. Curious as to what the president would say to mark this terrible battle that saw over 50,000 brave men from the North and the South die in 3 days, I peered over his strapping shoulder. I was shocked to see that it was only a few meager paragraphs. Okay, so again, the terrible battle saw 50,000 brave men. The only way I would know that is if I did a little research on the Battle of Gettysburg, right? And it only took me one page of internet to get through there. There was a great website about the Gettysburg Address, his speech, and the backup information about the battle itself. So I learned that 50,000 men from both armies, not just one of the armies, but both. So 50,000 altogether. I think it was 28 on one side and 21 on the other, died in one battle. It took 3 days, but it was just one of the battles of all of the Civil War, right? I added a couple adjectives. Strapping shoulder, because as we all know, he was a big, tall guy, right? Strapping means big strapping shoulder, right? So let's get back to the story. Sir, don't you think that a moment like this, there's more than this paltry speech? I was getting a little cocky there. My mouth blurted before my mind kicked in. Immediately I froze. So I think I spoke out of turn, right? I'm just a little aide, and I'm telling the president he needs to be writing more in his speech. Pretty crazy, right? So I tried to make that come through in my writing, that I knew that I messed up. So it says, my mouth blurted before my mind kicked in. We all do that once in a while. We talk before we think, right? And then it says, immediately I froze. And here I put a little humor in here. It says, immediately I froze, wondering if I could survive being thrown from or jumping myself from the moving train. And then I try to apologize. I say, sir, but before I could do that, President Lincoln carefully took off his glasses and turned to face me, holding his pen tightly in a fist. Young Michael, I understand your concern, but these words, while small in number, are enormous in meaning. With these words, I do not only memorialize the brave men who we have lost, but I remind the people of this great country of something else we have lost, who we are. Okay, so now I've read a little bit about the Gettysburg Address and what he's talking about, and he's not just talking about the battle. He's talking about the fact that what our country was based on. So I just give you a little clue about this. It's about more than just the men. I do also want to show you real quick when it says he took his glasses off. He's got his glasses in one hand, and he's got the pen tightly in a fist. I use that because on the statue of the Abraham Lincoln Memorial, he has two hands showing. One is in a fist, and one is relaxed, and that was done on purpose. It was to symbolize that he was both strong at times and also gentle at times. So I try to put that in my story. Okay. This is, "I don't understand, sir," I interrupted. "Our founding fathers built this country with a foundation laid upon equal rights of all people, and this Civil War is an earthquake threatening that basic foundation. In 1776, we declared our independence from England and swore an oath to create a different kind of union, a different kind of country. Through sacrifice such that we speak of at tomorrow's event, I believe that we will pass this test and prove that we can indeed create a more perfect union." Those are his words. "Why don't you take a closer look at the mediocre and insufficient words this old country boy from Kentucky was able to scratch together and see if I can make you understand?" So he's asking me to read the whole thing first before. And country boy from Kentucky is telling you that I did a little research, that I know he used to live in Kentucky. Last paragraph. "I sat down on a stool next to his writing table and took the paper from this magnificent man who had attempted to reunite our country through his intellect, his courage, and his resolve. As I read the last few words, that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth, goosebumps danced on my arms and the back of my neck, and I knew that I was sharing a train car with one of the greatest men who ever guided our wonderful country." So these are exact words from his Gettysburg Address, so I use that. So the essay is based on history, but it never really happened. That is what we're looking for. It's still a story, so you have to have people's emotions in there and people reacting to different situations. So Abe reacts when I speak to him, and I react when I speak to Abe. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. Something, it can be a little lighthearted, it can be a little fun if you want it to be, but just try to make sure it has enough historical information in there for it to be a historical, fictional, personal narrative. All right, so if you decide to do that, that's great. If you have any questions on it, let me know. But hopefully this model will help you out, and I will have others to follow. Thank you.